Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
Yeah, we've got to do a lot of. I feel fortunate. We've got to do a lot of neat things, and with a lot of good people, and I don't know who's going to be your replacement.
I don't know.
Well, a quick mention to notice here is so when Logan took over the house car, that's when you debuted the Area 51, right?
Yep.
And then when you took over the house car, you were still in the A51, but then during your year,
it transitioned with
to the Spitfire.
Landon and myself now running the Spitfire. Yeah, definitely touch on that real quick because that thing is like the Area 51 changed outlaw carts. I think we're right in the period of seeing the Spitfire really elevate and make the competition better and take the top drivers of, I guess, our outlaw kart sport where we're at now even faster.
Yeah, for sure. And, part of the evolution of that thing was, you would sprint car race in the summertime, and I would go home to North Carolina and we'd do a lot of racing around Millbridge and stuff like that, and then go usually try to run Knoxville and some of those
some of the bigger
races,
events,
and then come back and be here for the showcase. And that always worked out well. Well, then the one summer I was like, okay, I'm going to come back, and I'm not going to go do all that Midwest stuff, and I'm going to come back and I got to get a new chassis built.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of motor stuff I was wanting to work on too, and he was racing sprint cars, and we were at Cycleland one night, and I was running this engine and really couldn't get a feel for what happened, and next thing you know, I see this car cartwheeling through the air and hits the wall and goes flying underneath me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Man, that was a massive wreck. Hope this guy's okay, right? And come around, it ended up being Landon in his own car. And go back around there and stop under red. And not everybody on the show knows Matt Brooks.
Yeah.
Matt Brooks is
Landon's
mad.
dad.
Yeah, Landon's dad. He's mad. He's got a wing panel, and he's ready to beat somebody with this thing, and he's hollering. I'm like seriously concerned if Landon's hurt.
Yeah.
And so after the races were over, I walked down to Landon's car, out of curiosity to look at this rubble of wreckage and see if he was okay. And walked down there and talked to him. And, you guys know Landon's just a man of many words.
He don't talk a whole lot.
I go down, I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, just shook his head. And his dad's still mad.
Yeah.
He's stomping around, and he's ranting and raving. And so I'm like, that ain't that bad.
Yeah.
You can fix that thing. And I'm like, it is bad. But I was just trying to talk him off the cliff. And I was actually running Carson's body.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the wings I was developing. So I was running that car, the 3-car. And so he goes, why don't you let him run that car? And I actually kind of looked down there, and I was looking at that car, and I remember thinking, it's awful hot. I really am kind of stumped on this engine, and I really want to get this other chassis built. I'm like, yeah, you can run it. I said, but Tanner's coming week after next, and I was going to have him run this engine too. So you can run it next week or the next race. So I let Landon run it, and Landon was leading the race and blew up. And
9 laps in?
Yeah, it was the same lap you blew up a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
So I built this engine, and I was leading the race and blew up. And then Landon gets in it. I finished the race the night that Landon crashes. So then I put Landon in it, and then he blows it up.
Yeah.
And then the next week he comes, does the same thing. He's leading the race and blows up. He's going to win his first cycling race, and this thing blows up. So after that, it just kind of went back sprint car racing, and it was coming to the end of the season, and I had built this car, and I thought, I'll let Landon run it just to see what he thinks about it. And now he's, we swapped some engines around, and actually Daniel had the engine that kept blowing up. So Daniel was running that car that season, Whitley, and ended up winning the championship. And we did that just trying to free up some time so I could work on engines and work on building a new car. And, we wanted some representation, and Daniel and his dad could work on the car. And so we ended up running a full season with the 57 too. So we built the Spitfire, and we built it, with, a couple ideas of some lateral grip intentions. Half the time when you build these things, the intentions that you do don't do what you want them to do, but it exposes things in other areas that you don't really understand why. So sometimes there's reason behind the madness, and a lot of times it surfaces on its own.
Yeah.
So I built this car and put it together, and it was going to be the next to last points race. And the plan was to run the car that week, and then I had some billet parts that were machined for axle hanger parts we were going to come back and cut that car apart, put these other billet axle rails on it, and then run it the last race. Well, Landon was going to drive it. So Landon got in it, and he qualified quick time by we ran like a 10-0, almost got into
Which
nines.
that's a 10th off the Cyclan track record.
Phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And it was I think Daniel was second in almost a 10-3.
Was that one of those cars?
That was the first Spitfire I built.
Yeah.
So we went out for the dash, and knowing what we know now, I mean, the things are way more gripped up.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So he ran good in the dash, but you could tell he was hustling it, and so we tried some stuff for the feature, free it up some more, and they do their hot laps. He ends up running over Dominic Gordon's right rear and flips it on hot laps.
Yeah.
I'm not even up there yet. I'm riding up on the quad, and I had got stopped and talked to somebody, and I hear him say the 81's upside down, and I was like, I knew there was 3 81s.
Yeah.
So I was hoping it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they come dragging it in the infield, and the wings sideways on it. The wing tees broke, right front's ripped off of it, and I'm like, well, okay. So I took the bag of tools that I had to go in the infield, and I took them back to the trailer and set them on the toolbox, and I come back up, and instead of going in the infield, I'm just going to watch from outside. Now I'm looking about 3 laps in, I'm like, what the hell? That's the 81.
Yeah.
Wings all sideways on it, and body's tore up. The tail's about touching the back, touching the cage. And so then I'm like, well, all right, I'm going to run back to the trailer and grab some parts. If there's another red, we'll fix the wing tee and, fix that stuff. So they end up having a red towards the end of it, and I run out there to fix the wing tee, and Matt is still yelling at Landon.
For flipping it?
Yeah, in the warm-up.
You idiot. I can't. I mean, still, this is 10 to go or 5 to go, and Matt's still mad. I mean, he is just ridiculing this kid. And I'm like, man, he goes, you're never going to get to drive for him ever again. You destroyed this car. You're paying for it. I mean, he was just tearing him up. And I'm feeling sorry for Landon. I'm like, man, I don't care. I mean, stuff happens,
Yeah.
So he ends up running 5th with it. And get
With
back
a
at 5th.
wore-out car.
And, I mean, it's junk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's garbage. I get it back home, and I mean, it's bent. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Well, I can't do the test that I wanted to do with the axle rails because the car's garbage.
Yeah.
So I skipped the last race, and we were going into the Red Bluff season last year.
Yeah.
1920 season. So Landon was wanting, Matt was wanting to run, and I'm like, man, I don't want 3 cars.
Yeah.
I run the 18T. Well, they conned me into running the 60 and we got some funding from Salco and Matt themselves put money into it.
Yeah.
And basically the 57 and the 60 last season paid their own expenses.
Right.
I supplied the car and the engine, but the thing was, I'm like, I got to have help.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem. So Matt and Ryan Whitley would stay on Sundays, and they washed all the cars, and it was phenomenal. I mean, it was really, really good.
It was a cool team.
Yeah, it was a great team, and man, they took a lot off of me to where I could focus on working on the business and all. But going into that season, I was like, man, maybe we'll run Tanner on an Area 51. We'll run Landon on a Spitfire.
Yeah.
This didn't have a name yet. It just kind of had
Because I hadn't ran it yet, and I was pretty skeptical about trying anything different because I like what works. So.
And I know Tanner. That's 100% true.
So I was like, you know what? I've never been successful at putting one toe in the water.
Yeah.
You either jump in or
you go for it.
I'm like, if it doesn't work, we can go back to an Area 51.
Right.
So we built 3 of these brand new cars, these Spitfires, and I think it suited probably Landon, or Landon didn't have any other.
Yeah, he didn't have anything to base it off of.
Yeah, he didn't have any much experience in an Area 51 car, because he'd driven different stuff.
Yeah.
So I think for him, he ran it that one time, and it had a lot of speed, at Cycleland. So he was more, probably, he was more like, I don't know what the word is, but he was more like hopeful of what it was going to be, or thinking it could be good. To where the other 2 were like,
we're good.
Yeah.
What do we got?
Yeah.
But like I said, I was like, well, we got to, like I said, you can't put the toe in the water. We got to jump in.
Yeah, we got to try it.
And I think it was probably, for you, it took a little bit to get used to it. I mean, I think you still won 2 races by the first half.
Yeah.
And led some laps, but I mean, I mean, the first race we didn't make it out of the C main or B
No,
main?
we didn't. We struggled. We had some stuff go wrong, but yeah, like it was definitely like a super slow start to the year. And I remember like I didn't want to be like disrespectful or say anything, but I just wanted to be like, yo, we got the Area 51 sitting in the back of the shop. Like, let's just go put everything on that and let's go back to normal. But finally, by like race 3, I mean, we almost won 3 races in a row. There we won races 3 and 5, and all of a sudden, like we were clicking, and we're like, man, this thing's really good.